Alright, good morning, whoever's there. Um, Friday workout as usual. Gonna be a bit of a quicker pace. Boss messaged me, so I gotta get into work a little bit early, but we'll just see where I get up to. What am I gonna be doing today is dips, probably jumping lunges, Russian twist as always, and the fourth workout I'll try to figure it out later. But yeah. Usual progress photo. Well, Cheddar's here as well to hopefully inspire. Or like get in the way, but you know, functional training I guess. Gotta adapt. Working out. Oh, I'm listening to stuff also in the background. I normally mute it, but it seemed like Twitch didn't. I'm just gonna try playing all my stuff in the background because you know it's a bit boring watching, I guess, with nothing. Well, it's pretty much boring watching anyway. I'm only here just to hopefully inspire anyone to do anything these days. But anyway, yeah, I'm just gonna play my stuff in the background. I listen to just random news and facts and whatnot. Just whatever that gets me in my mind off my training. Anyway, I gotta start now because I am running on limited time.
Franco Show, buckle up, make sure you're subscribed because I'm splitting $10,000 across 10 lucky, beautiful bastards this month. And let's just jump into it. First up today, as usual, America is split between two mutually exclusive realities. Was the election stolen? Are vaccines helpful? Is Angela from Nathan Fielder's The Rehearsal actually a real person? One of those is not like the others. But, this latest controversy, if you want to even call it that, to grip the American public surrounds the Boston Children's Hospital, which notably was actually named the #1 pediatric care center for the 9th year in a row last June. But now it's being dragged into this so-called culture war largely because of libs of TikTok, who posted a clip last week from this video originally made by the hospital.
Gender-affirming hysterectomy is very similar to most hysterectomies that occur. A hysterectomy itself is the removal of the uterus, the cervix, which is the opening of the uterus, and the fallopian tube to the sides of the uterus. Some gender-affirming hysterectomies will also...
These dips are pretty easy. You can do these anywhere.
Technically a separate procedure.
You make it easier for yourself by bringing that chair a little bit lower. I should have done it on the rings, but I guess I'll do that next week.
We're getting gender-affirming hysterectomy. Not have to have.
With, and this is one of the key things here, libs of TikTok framing this video as Boston Children's Hospital now offering gender-affirming hysterectomies for young girls. They're seeming to imply to her more than 1 million followers that it performs the irreversible surgery on minors. But, and this is the other key thing here, not true. As places like PolitiFact or anyone that took an additional 2 seconds could tell you, patients who qualify must be 18 years or older and have a letter from a medical doctor stating that they have persistent, well-documented gender dysphoria. But that is literally on the hospital's website, and that's in line with the medical guidelines developed by the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. But, of course, none of that stopped a host of right-wing personalities from amplifying the misinformation. But just so many pushing this, and many of the individual doctors at the hospital are getting bombarded by harassing comments on social media and negative reviews on their online pages. So much so that yesterday the hospital put out a statement saying it has been the target of a large volume of hostile internet activity, phone calls, and harassing emails, including threats of violence towards our clinicians and staff, adding that it sent an email to its employees instructing them on how to respond to such threats. So they're getting so bad that it's coordinating with law enforcement to ensure the safety of its staff. I've also got a Twitter representative telling NBC they're looking into the harassment campaign. And the unfortunate thing is, this is not the first time, even for Boston Children's Hospital, with it also receiving harassment last year for just providing gender-affirming treatment. Again, not to children. The thing is, I don't fault the people that are being misled by libs of TikTok. Like, it's in the fucking name, Boston Children's Hospital. You're like, of course, they're talking about people that are under 18. But the moment you take a little extra time, you're like, oh, no, these people are just misleading others. But hey, now you watch my show and you know the reality of the situation, so do with the information as you will. And then, let's talk about this news that touches on comedy, sensitivities, Hollywood, and cancel culture. This specific story centering around a film that Jamie Foxx wrote, directed, and starred in called All-Star Weekend. Well, it started filming back in 2016. It has an all-star cast. You've probably never heard of it. You got Jamie Foxx and Jeremy Piven playing basketball fans to All-Star Weekend in
Coach Cheddar's around.
They travel to the city to see their favorite players. It also co-starred the likes of Robert Downey Jr., Benicio
I have a whole
del Toro,
lifetime
Butler, and
supply of
Longoria.
answers
So
to
with all
names.
those heavy hitters, it's
Surely
like,
for
how
that little
have we
thing.
never heard about this movie? How is it unreleased? Well, what we're seeing now is that Jamie Foxx just did an interview, and he suggested that the current cultural climate would not receive the humor of this film well.
Man, it's been tough. With the lay of the land when it comes to comedy, man. We're trying to break open those sensitive corners where people go back to laughing again.
You know, that's kind of vague. It's like, okay, well, what are the specifics? So with looking into this, I actually found out this is not the first time that he's talked about this. Back in 2017, he was actually on the Joe Rogan Experience talking about it. And there, he detailed something about the characters that could piss people off.
Like I play a white racist cop. Robert Downey Jr. plays a Mexican.
Jamie then, of course, talking about Robert Downey Jr. famously doing blackface in Tropic Thunder and how they probably couldn't do that anymore. Jamie at the time also going on to detail that Robert Downey Jr. was actually hesitant to take on the role in All-Star Weekend.
I called Robert. I said, listen, I need you to play a Mexican. He says, dude, here's the deal. Sure, fuck it. Sure, why not? Fuck it. Sure, of course. Sure, Mexican, whatever. But then he texts back and said, I'm nervous to play the Mexican. I said, well, shit. You played the black dude, and you killed that shit.
Side note, Jamie Foxx is annoyingly talented. Like, my guy, why can't you just be good at one or two things? Impressions, too? But anyways, with this story, Jamie then continues to point that entertainers need room to create, to play characters. So you have some people pointing to other things, saying, you know, this is probably not the only reason. People pointing to just a few months back, you had Jeremy Piven giving a different reason as to why the film didn't come out. But them kind of pointing the finger at Jamie Foxx, saying, you know, Jamie is so talented, he's a big perfectionist, so he's guarding over and he doesn't want to release this film. But in general, I think it does bring us to a question that we've seen come up more and more, especially over the past decade. Is it appropriate for an actor to play someone of a different race? Or with one of the most recent examples being actor John Leguizamo calling out James Franco for playing Fidel Castro, saying, how is Hollywood not only excluding us, but stealing our narratives as well? No more appropriation. And that's kind of a lot of the argument of it being exploited. It's taking the opportunity away from the person that it's supposed to be representing. Additionally, it can be seen as mockery or offensive. Also, it's not limited to just race. I remember Bryan Cranston got a lot of crap for playing someone that was not able-bodied. But then, of course, on the other side of this, you have people saying, no, actors are supposed to be people that they're not. That's inherently part of the role. They're supposed to put on someone else's skin. So ultimately, the questions I want to pass off to you here is, one, where do you stand on that general question? And two, do you think that All-Star Weekend should and or can be released in this day and age? Even though Jamie Foxx is not alone in thinking that we are past the age of being able to release White Chicks or Tropic Thunder. Well, from that, I want to take a second to thank the fantastic sponsor of today's show, Ridge. And I had a Ridge wallet before they even became a sponsor. I love that Ridge is a minimalist front pocket wallet that's slim, RFID blocking, and comes with a lifetime guarantee. All right, we need to get past it. Men's wallets can and have been incredibly bulky. If you're sitting down and having a conversation and you're leaning in, not because the conversation's interesting, but because you have just shit jutting out of your wallet, you need a new one. That old school BS, it's just not practical for the modern man or woman. The Ridge helps you carry less, but always what you need. And its awesome sleek design has to be what I love most. It has two metal plates bound together by a durable elastic band, so it's easy to get out what you want and easy to put in something new. And their key case is sleek, durable, and takes the jingle out of the key ring experience. And get this, with every dollar spent on the website before September 30th, you'll get entered to win a brand new upgraded Ford Bronco or $75K if you prefer cash, with the winner being announced in October. So head on over to ridge.com/DeFranco and make sure you use code DeFranco to get 10% off site-wide. And then we should definitely talk about yesterday's primary elections in Alaska and Wyoming. Because like most discussions of the primaries this midterm season, the central narrative of the discussion has been, what does it mean for Trump and his hold of the Republican Party? And yesterday we saw some of the most interesting results regarding that. Starting off with Representative Liz Cheney. It was widely expected for her to lose, and she did just that, losing the primary in a landslide to a Trump-endorsed challenger. When I say landslide, I mean landslide, with around 95% of the precincts reporting Cheney had received just 28% of the vote to her rival's 66%. And while expected, that margin is so telling. Liz Cheney reportedly voted with Donald Trump 93% of the time. But of course, where she famously did not agree with Donald Trump was his attempt to undo democracy and steal the election. And just like that, this person that voted with Trump 93% of the time, that cheered the reversal of Roe v. Wade, lost massive. Especially when you take a second to look back and remember that in 2020, she won her primary 73.5 to 26.1. That's what happened to the number 3 Republican in House leadership. Though, of course, well before this primary, her Republican colleagues had stripped her of that leadership role because she called out Trump's election lies and condemned him for minimizing the attack. And very key here, Cheney isn't the only Republican who has firmly denounced Trump and lost her seat. Out of the 10 Republican House members who voted in favor of impeaching the former president after the insurrection, only 2 have advanced to the general election, with 4 having now lost their primaries and the remaining 4 having decided not to even run for re-election at all. So while Cheney is not alone here, she is the most high profile of the impeachment Republicans, and her loss is also the most symbolically important because it really underscores how deeply the GOP has realigned to blindly support Trump. Or before she turned down Trump and announced to the world the emperor has no clothes, she was a popular person among her party. She was quickly rising the ranks. Now, with all that said, Cheney for her part has made it clear that her fight is far from over, continuing her condemnation of Trump in a concession speech last night where she implied that she was eyeing a run for president. But they're also telling reporters this morning that she was thinking thinking about running and would make the decision in the coming months. But as far as how much momentum Cheney would get for that potential bid, I mean, it's important to look at a few things. With given her stance that she would likely just be a Republican protest vote of I don't want Trump, there is still a base of Republicans out there who do not support Trump and his candidate. And in fact, we actually saw a really interesting showing from that base yesterday in Alaska. Now, one of the important things to know about Alaska is that its primaries are open, meaning that members of all parties compete against one another, with the top 4 candidates then advancing to the general regardless of affiliation. And notably, when they get to the general election, they have ranked choice voting. So in the Senate race there, incumbent Lisa Murkowski, the only Senate Republican who voted to convict Trump at his impeachment trial, advanced into the general. With around 70% of the votes counted, she's currently leading a Trump-backed opponent by a margin of over 43% to 40%. Also, very notable here is what went down in the special election to choose who will serve out the remainder of the term for Alaska's only congressional seat, which was vacated when the previous member died. Now, the thing with this special election is that it's not actually a primary. Alaskans already went through the primary process for this race back in June, selecting the top 4 candidates to advance to the general vote, though one of the 4, a Democrat, dropped out after. So because the special election yesterday was technically a general election, voters got to use the ranked choice system for the first time to pick between the remaining Democrat and 2 Republicans. This including the candidate that Trump endorsed, former Alaska governor and vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin, with just under 70% of the precincts reporting the Democrat is actually in the lead, with Palin in second place and Palin by 6 points. But I do want to note, because the special election was ranked choice, these current results don't mean that the Democrat will win. But the process of tallying all the ranked choice votes is expected to take weeks, and the final outcome depends on how many voters ranked each candidate in relation to one another, and most importantly, who they ranked second. But no matter what, it would be incredibly significant if the Democrat won, or even if they came in second but still above Palin. So far, more of an interesting mix here, especially when compared to Cheney's just blowout loss. But ultimately, that's where we are. We're going to have to keep our eyes on any developments and trends, but we're going to have to wait to see how all this plays out in the general. And then, let's talk about this Florida court's decision that a 16-year-old girl was not mature enough to get an abortion that was upheld on Monday of this week. So the teen, only known as Jane Doe 22B, has no parents, lives with a relative, is under state care, and is a legal guardian. When she first went to court seeking an abortion, she was just 10 weeks pregnant. The case was first seen in the lower court before being sent to a 3-judge panel at the First Circuit Court of Appeals, and that appeals court upholding the lower court's decision that this teen was not mature enough and that she, quote, had not established by clear and convincing evidence that she was sufficiently mature to decide whether to terminate her pregnancy. And as you can imagine, this resulted in a lot of reactions. Pro-birthers, of course, cheering on the move, but also on the other side, you have people saying things like, Florida is forcing a 16-year-old girl to have a baby because they say she is not mature enough to have an abortion. Let that sink in. But in the midst of all that being said, I looked a little further, and it's not as black and white, I think, as a lot of people are talking about. So technically, the appeals court never ruled that she's going to be forced to carry this pregnancy to term, with the appeals court agreeing with the lower court that the teen possibly needed time to consider the decision and writing in their decision. Reading between the lines, it appears that the trial court wanted to give the minor, who was under extra stress due to a friend's death, additional time to express a keener understanding of the consequences of terminating a pregnancy. This makes sense, given that the minor, at least at one point, says she was open to having a child, but later changed her view after considering her inability to care for a child in her current station in life. And so in line with that, the teen's able to go back to the circuit judge and petition for abortion again. But still, with all of that, you have people going, okay, well, still the big question is, why was this even in the courts at all? Well, that is because in Florida, a minor can get an abortion with parental consent or by going around them and going to court for help. And so with Jane Doe 22B not having any parents, it seems obvious why she went to court. However, she does have a legal guardian that is fine with the abortion, and that apparently counts too, which also led to the appeals court being a little confused about this whole issue, writing that if her guardian, quote, consents to the minor's termination of her pregnancy, all that is required is a written waiver from the guardian. So it looks like with everything that's happening right now and so much confusion, there's actually a quick and easy solution to all of this anyways. But a key thing here is that is just for this situation. Because looking into it, in the past, Florida courts have actually tried to deny abortion for teens because their GPAs were too low, which I will note, that was successfully appealed eventually, but it's only a matter of time before someone is forced to give birth by the court. And then, stepping back even further, this entire situation highlights a serious debate about the government's role in these decisions, especially when teens are involved. I think it's part of the reason this exchange between Joe Rogan and his guest Seth Dillon got so much attention.
You don't have the right to tell my 14-year-old daughter she has to carry her rapist baby. You understand
to
that?
look that woman in the eye who was the
But then
born of a
listen, do
rape.
you understand that? That's a 14-year-old child. If a 14-year-old child gets raped, you say that they have to carry that baby?
I don't think two wrongs make a right. I don't think
That's
murder.
not- I don't think that's
murder is
wrong.
an answer to. I don't think murder fixes a.
What if we're talking about an abortion when the fetus, literally it's like 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 days? What if you just turned positive, just now? Positive for pregnancy.
Dillon defending his position with the usual pro-birth talking points, or things like, and I'm paraphrasing, it's a human life, or asking when does the magic happen for Rogan to consider a fetus a human. Also with his back and forth, we saw Dillon getting a lot of praise from conservatives for this moment.
I think abortion is healthcare, the way that rape is.
So notably, that statement got a lot of pushback as well. People arguing and pointing out that no, abortion is healthcare. It's used to stop ectopic pregnancies or save the mother's life. The idea that it's used flippantly is insane. But a lot of those people also kind of putting their hands up in the air, though, going, nothing's going to come from this debate. They're saying we're not going to ever see eye to eye with someone that believes that a clump of cells is human at conception. Which also brings us to the second thing. In America, the idea that life begins at conception is a very Christian position. With people noting that Judaism and Islam actually allow for abortions under various circumstances, and people arguing that forcing them to adhere to Christian standards actually likely violates the First Amendment. Which is also why we've seen lawsuits about this already brought up, and why we've seen people responding to the clip in question with things like, nah, keep religion to yourselves. The idea that life begins at the moment of conception is purely religious, so it should not be forced upon those who don't believe so. But also beyond the religion question, many are uncomfortable with the idea that the government is now telling people what they can and cannot do with their bodies and their healthcare. But ultimately, that is where that story and today's show ends. As always, thank you for watching, being subscribed for these daily dives into the news. Also, if you need more news, I got you covered right here, or check out that description down below. But, of course, as always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love your faces, and I'll see you tomorrow. You beautiful bastards, welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show. Buckle up, make sure you subscribe because I'm splitting $10,000 across 10 lucky subscribe beautiful bastards this month. And let's just jump into it. Drugs, money, and religion. 2 out of 3 of Grandma DeFranco's favorite things, but all connected through these stories. The first being about the Zydor Church of Entheogenic Plants. It's non-denominational and they support the safe use of cannabis and magic mushrooms among other substances which can establish a direct connection with God. And for a while they could do this because of course California made recreational marijuana legal, and in 2019 Oakland effectively decriminalized mushrooms. Still, while you can smoke a joint from the pews, you cannot consume mushrooms on site. Which, while a little questionable, seems a lot more fun than communion. Reportedly, members of the church just have to pay a $5 monthly fee plus donations for the psychedelics, and around 200 reportedly come to get them every day. And because, of course, services are held every Sunday at 4:20 p.m. Also, the church's founder is a guy by the name of Dave Hodges. He's an activist for drug legalization. He also says the highest single dose of mushrooms he's ever taken is 30 grams, which, what the fuck? I once took 10 grams. I got stuck in a black and white anime for 2 hours. I don't even want to think what 30 would do, but he believes that mushrooms are the way that humans evolved to have religious experiences.
But leaving your body, interacting with entities, gods, aliens, all sorts of things. You can get to these places through intense meditation. You don't have to take a bunch of mushrooms to get there. But that's the shortcut, and we believe it's the first way that we actually experience it.
But the reason we're talking about, Dave, is what happened back in August of 2020. You had Oakland police suddenly raiding the church, seizing around $200,000 worth of cash, cannabis, and several strains of magic mushroom. And that's because despite the lax laws, it was still illegal for them to sell the drugs, and undercover cops reportedly bought some from the church. But now the Zydor Church is seeking justice, not from the Lord, but rather the courts, with them filing a lawsuit against the city and local police in federal court this week for allegedly infringing on its constitutional and religious rights, which arguably is backed by some laws, where some religious groups are actually exempt from drug bans. Like a couple churches of Brazilian origin can use ayahuasca, and the Native American church can use peyote. So this church is seeking damages for the harms that it suffered, as well as a permanent injunction allowing it to operate. So we'll see what happens there, but that was only the drugs and religion. What about money and religion?
See, that's how I know you still poor, broke, busted, and disgusted, because of how you've been honoring me. Not worth your McDonald's money. Not worth your Red Lobster money. I ain't worth your St. John Nick. Y'all can't afford it no how. I ain't worth y'all Louis Vuitton. I ain't worth your Prada. I'm not worth your Gucci.
So that right there is another pastor in Kansas City named Carlton Funderburk. And as you can tell, he is not happy with his congregation because while he's blessing them with prayers, they are not blessing him with those dollar bills. Which, by the way, quick question, since when did the Lord want his people blinged out? Like, there was a recent story about a Brooklyn pastor who got $1 million worth of jewelry stolen off of his and his wife's bodies in the middle of a sermon. But my guy Funderburk, here's the thing, he is more humble. He's only asking for a watch.
Mother, I'm saying this, and I promise you, Deacon, it is not with respect and want. I'm saying it because I want you to understand just what God is saying. Even found out that Movado, you can buy a Movado watch in Sam's. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And y'all know I asked for one last year. Here it is the whole way in August. I still ain't got it. Y'all ain't saying nothing. Let me kick down the door and talk to my cheap sons and daughters.
That clip going viral, Funderburk coming under fire. He's also since apologized, but I'm not going to play the clip. Like, those words are worthless. This is a grifter protecting his grift. And the thing that's annoying is you know he's going to get away with it. Like snake oil salesman plus religion, that is a money printing machine with an unlimited supply of get out of jail free God forgiveness cards. And then he likes some young. I just said that phrase, whose name and or face popped into your head? There might be a range there in those specific situations. They may range from illegal to creepy to questionable. And the reason that we're talking about this today starts with Demi Lovato. She just put out a song called 29, which signifies not only her age, but many believe that it's a nod to the age that Wilmer Valderrama was when he met Demi. With reports saying they met when Demi was 17 and Wilmer was 29. They start dating later when she turns 18. Reportedly, they're on and off for 6 years, and this is not kind of an outlier. Wilmer has famously dated younger women, Lindsay Lohan when she was 18 and he was 24, Mandy Moore when she was 16 and he was 20. While Lovato never specifically names him, there are lyrics like, far from innocent, what the fuck's consent, numbers told you not to, but that didn't stop you, finally 29, funny, just like you were at the time. Thought it was a teenage dream, just a fantasy, but was it yours or was it mine? 1729. Seems very obvious. Also possibly in reference to the other girls saying this person is quite the collector. Lovato also later saying to the Los Angeles Times, I didn't understand it at the time. I was like, I just like older guys. And now I'm like, hey, that's not okay. That's weird. And also adding that it's not a one-way street, saying they have a guy friend who also relates to the song. And so following this online, you had people specifically going after Valderrama, some talking about the situation and older guys who date younger women in general. But it's also seeming to connect to the growing conversation about the predatory behavior around child stars or just young women in Hollywood in general. Though I would say it's not just limited to Hollywood. And all really add to this story because if you look at the social conversation online, everything's being said. My only thing is if you are bothered by this, be bothered by this equally. Like the other week, I saw everyone losing their mind that 50-year-old Dane Cook is now engaged to a 23-year-old. And I believe rightly so, especially because it appears that he met her when she was a teenager. Like when I was back in Atlanta watching Dane Cook perform the Vicious Circle Tour, his now fiance was probably learning addition and subtraction. I wish that was hyperbolic. I think the math on that adds up. Yeah, talk about and be disgusted by that, but don't do it just because Dane Cook is like no longer popular and he has that like weird plastic surgery face. Talk about Valderrama, talk about Leonardo DiCaprio, talk about Zach Braff. I loved that 70s show, The Departed. Oh my god, amazing. Garden State helped me emotionally evolve as a young man. But unless these men have some sort of like medical condition, allergic reaction to having sex with women who like witnessed 9/11 happen, it's at the very least weird, and some of these situations sound very, very much like grooming. But from that, I want to take a second to thank the fantastic sponsor of today's show, Thrive Market. Organic groceries can be expensive, but Thrive Market will help you cut your grocery bill by over 30%. They're an online membership-based grocery store on a mission to make healthy living easy and affordable for everyone. You can shop for thousands of organic foods and natural products below traditional retail prices delivered straight to your door, saving you time and money. And if you find a better price elsewhere, they'll match it. They've got a huge selection of snacks, supplements, eco-friendly cleaning supplies, non-toxic beauty items, organic kids products, wine, meat, seafood, and more. My favorite products from my last order, probably my Crispy Crisp, banana muffin mix, pasta. I saved $48 by getting them on Thrive Market. Do you want gluten-free, vegan, keto? No worries. You can shop by over 90-plus diets and lifestyle needs. And all orders $49 and up are shipped free and delivered with carbon-neutral shipping. And for every paid annual membership, Thrive Market donates a free membership to someone in need. So go to thrivemarket.com/DeFranco to save an extra 30% off your first order and get a free gift worth up to $50 when you join Thrive Market today. You need to drink more alcohol. That is currently what the Japanese government is telling its young people. Or rather, that's what they want to tell their young people, but they want your help. So their national tax agency is launching the Viva Sake campaign. Applicants have until September 9th to submit their ideas, with the winners going into a final tournament arc in November, with the grand prize being for their plan to be implemented and commercialized. And like most things in this world, they're doing this because of the money, and specifically taxes. Because since the pandemic began, nearly half of the country's versions of a pub have closed, and the tax revenue that they brought in went with them. Now, luckily for them, during the pandemic, at-home drinking skyrocketed during the pandemic, except that wasn't the case for young people. With the government finding that only 7.8% of people in their 20s drink 3 or more times a week, compared to 30% of those between 40 and 60. This trend has meant that alcohol taxes, which are a major source of revenue for the government, have drastically declined. Back in 1980, it was about 5% of the total budget, but in 2021, it was only 1.7%. And personally, I think this is fucking insane. Like, I get the money moves mountains, it puts on blinders, and I enjoy the occasional drink or two, but you're telling people because they're drinking 2 times or less a week, that is not enough.
Another one.
Like, you're actively pushing people to be heavy drinkers at the same time as your health ministry has done campaigns in the past discouraging heavy drinking. Like, you literally know it's bad to the people that you're now trying to promote it to. And so far, the leading messaging is that if you are a patriotic Japanese person, go drink. Like, yo, according to research, harmful use of alcohol causes over 3 million deaths per year. And drinking too much or too often increases risk of injuries, liver damage, cancers, heart disease, mental illness. Like, do you know how fucking stupid your idea is to make me go into daddy mode? NFTs are the future. You've probably heard some celebrities say that in the past year or two. Hell, even fucking 84-year-old Sir Anthony Hopkins released an NFT collection yesterday. They often seem inescapable as the market has become so saturated with so many influencers pushing them. And because it's been so saturated, it's easy to forget, who is pushing this, what has been successful, what has failed just horribly. But luckily, you have creators like CoffeeZilla, who's a creator who's done a lot to educate people about the influence of crypto space. And just recently, he put out a video looking at nearly 24 celebrity NFT ventures. Starting with Justin Bieber, who still actively supports his NFT venture, which is currently down 30% from its mint. Which, in the sphere of celebrity NFTs, CoffeeZilla kind of explains is not actually that bad, especially since it's hard to keep people interested, to keep hype alive. Also turning to the likes of the Nelk Boys as an example of people who've actually done a relatively good job of that.
The price has only dipped like 20% in the last several months, which frankly really surprised me. I mean, I guess the Nelk fan base just won't let this one die.
And actually, the examples like entrepreneur Gary Vee doing quite well.
They're selling for the price of an economy car. With a mid price between 2.5 Ethereum and 0.5 Ethereum, early investors are very happy. Their investments are up several hundred %. I think they're selling for like over 6 Ethereum now. And I think the X factor is obviously Gary Vee himself and the project's exclusive access to VCon, which is an NFT event he throws every single year.
But also noting that just because an NFT goes up in value doesn't mean that it's going to stay that way. And with that, pointing to Reese Witherspoon's World of Women project as an example, right there noting that if you got it at the beginning, you still probably are happy, but pointing out that it's really dipped since its high peaking point a few months after its release. But notably, it appears that these are kind of like the exception.
Even so-called real artists like Grimes will release stuff like, this Earth collection she did. Originally, it'll cost $7,500, and now it's selling for $200. ASAP Rocky faced the same problem with his project, which initially sold for $2,000 and is now selling for $400.
CoffeeZilla noted that this is a pattern. Turning to Mike Tyson's NFT collection, which is down from its all-time high.
Cheers for the follow, Avocado J. How you going today?
And explaining.
Projects have a boom and then a bust. They initially get hype, they get sales, and then over time, the celebrity and the holder just kind of lose interest in the NFT. And that kind of makes sense. It's hard to maintain that initial hype.
When it comes to celebrities just losing interest, right, some just quietly distance themselves from those projects. Right, Lindsay Lohan promoted the Canine Cartel NFT, but
fast forward to today, Lindsay has deleted her tweet promoting it, and the project is down 90%.
And adding that the basketball player John Wall just deleted the website for his NFT venture. CoffeeZilla also putting Jake Paul in his site.
He releases the Sacred NFT project or partners with it, and now he abandons it, and it's down 90%.
And so ultimately, I think the main point of this story is be careful out there. I know that with my audience is kind of preaching to the choir, but it's also a reminder that many of these celebrities could give a fuck about you. They at most kind of risk part of their reputation, even though if you look at like an NFT project, there's only going to be several hundred or a few thousand holders. But still, those are real people who believed and supported you and are going to lose money possibly. Most of the creators promoting this shit don't even think about the why. At least like the Gary Vee and Nelk ventures, there's supposed to be some sort of utility. Like there's at least an idea that maybe there is some sort of value rather than just give me money and then try and fucking flop it to some other random person. I don't know why I said flop, I meant sling. But ultimately, that is where the story in today's show ends. Thank you for watching and subscribing to my daily dive.
Still there, yeah.
Also, if you want
Thanks for
more
the follow.
news, I got you
Hopefully my mic's
covered
working
here or in those
properly.
links down below. But as always, my
Trying to see if I can get
name is
DMCAd by
Franco.
listening to all this YouTube stuff.
I love yo faces, and I'll see you next time.
Watch a lot of YouTube. Like, way too much, actually. When I'm not watching videos about Sonic the Hedgehog, or old computer games, or Marvel movies, I'm watching either fitness content, predictably, or self-improvement, self-development content. I find this stuff pretty interesting. It's a shame then that on the whole, this stuff just isn't for me anymore. It's just not aimed at me. And if you're a parent, you might know what I'm talking about. So the vast majority of training advice, and certainly the vast majority of self-improvement and productivity advice, is aimed squarely at 20-somethings who are single and without children. And as you'll know, if you're a parent yourself, having children makes things a little bit different, and some of the advice just doesn't fly anymore. In this video, I want to explain what's different and why a lot of that information doesn't apply to us in the same way. I also want to talk about how you can work around it and still be highly productive and get into great shape as a parent, and I also hope there'll be some information in here that's useful for people who don't have children yet, so that they can see where we're coming from, particularly content creators, but also anyone who's interested in what's down the line for them. I want to delve into whether or not becoming a parent at a young age is a good idea if you have big goals and big fitness goals. So this is going to be one of those talky videos. Without further ado, let's get into it. First things first, allow me to defend my hypothesis by explaining why it is I think the fitness content and self-improvement content isn't really aimed at parents for the And the first and most glaring example of this is sleep. So many videos, so many channels, probably including mine at some point, say how important it is to get 8 hours of sleep every night. They're like, this is the first thing you should do if you want to be productive or if you want to build a muscle, and it's non-negotiable. And sure, that's great advice. Good thing I'm a wizard then, because as a parent, getting 8 hours of sleep is nigh impossible. My son, who's about 8 months now, is actually the best sleeper in the world, like to an extraordinary degree, and he started sleeping through from a very young age. In fact, a lot of other parents hate me for it. But even he will wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. He requires a dream feed at 11:30, so he can't really get to sleep that much earlier than we would do otherwise. And then he might wake up 2 or 3 times during the night. Now, I could turn over to my wife and say, sorry, it's your turn again, because muscle building is biphasic. I'm not sure that she'd really appreciate that. I have to do my bit as well, which means that I'm not going to get 8 hours of sleep most nights. I could also sleep prior to that dream feed. However, I do also want to have some life. And since I've finished the chores at like 9:30 p.m, I'm not going to then go to bed only to wake up at 5. That's just a miserable life. I want to have at least an hour or 2 myself to spend with my wife, to do nice things. Watching Love Island at the moment. Not proud of it, but I am enjoying it. Point is, I'm not getting 8 hours sleep. A lot of other parents are going to get even less sleep. Something that's actually really useful for parents on a time crunch is today's sponsor, Blinkist. So Blinkist is an app that condenses key ideas from books and sometimes podcasts into much smaller, much more consumable 15-minute chunks. Specifically, Blinkist condenses non-fiction books, and it has over 5,000 titles from 27 different categories to choose from. A book I really enjoyed on there recently was Chasing Excellence by Ben Bergeron. This is a book all about what it takes to be an athlete at the very highest level and how Ben goes about coaching those athletes from a mental and a cognitive perspective. In particular, he talks about thinking about what you can control and what you can't control, and how the best athletes will focus on what they can control. They'll get them to write a list of all the things they can't control and to just stop wasting time, energy and anxiety on them. One of the key things you can always control is your response to the situation. In a moment I'll be talking about how to cope with a loss of sleep as a parent, and instead of fretting about the fact that you've lost sleep because that's outside of your control, instead think about your response to that lack of sleep. How are you going to cope moving forwards? This will make more sense in a moment. 2 other good examples that viewers of this channel will enjoy are The 4-Hour Body by Tim Ferriss and Thinking Fast and Slow, and Pioneers can get a 7-day free trial followed by 25% off a premium membership by going to the link in the description down below. Thanks once again to Blinkist for sponsoring this video, and now back to our usual programming. Which leads me on to morning routines, which is something that has been lambasted before on YouTube, but morning routines is just a concept that's entirely foreign to any parent, because sure, it'd be nice to wake up at the crack of dawn and then meditate for a little bit, maybe read the news, do a workout, etc., have a cold shower, eat this perfect balanced breakfast, but again, as a parent, that just ain't happening. First thing I have to do in the morning when I wake up is get my daughter ready, whilst Hannah gets my son ready. Then I have to make the breakfast, whilst Hannah gets herself ready. Then we all eat breakfast. My son is eating purees, which takes about 40 minutes of him wiping it on his face, which is very stressful. I rarely even start work at 9 AM as it is without meditating. And this idea of being really proactive as you start your day, make sure you're in a proactive headspace when you start your day, not reactive. Don't answer any emails, etc. Emails are not the issue here. The issue here is being shouted at by a kid who doesn't want to do her teeth, or wants to watch more videos while she does her teeth, but then she doesn't pay attention and she doesn't brush her teeth properly. I feel like I've done 10 rounds with Mike Tyson before I've even started my day, and I'm not really in a proactive headspace. In fact, I'm barely even functioning. So morning routines are off the table, and so too are just routines in general, because anytime you think you've got into this like nice routine flow, something will come along and like blast out the water. Whether that's one of the kids getting COVID, for example, which means that they can't go to preschool, whether it's one of us getting poorly. And we get poorly all the time because the kid brings home all these diseases from preschool, which makes us sick. Also, we're all tired and none of us sleep. Also, my son will literally wipe his butt and then wipe his hand across your face in just this big smear. Or maybe you need to paint the house, and normally that wouldn't be an issue, but you can't paint the house with the kids in the house. They need to be shipped off, which means you all need to go and stay with your in-laws. And then the painter decorators don't show up, and perhaps this was an honest mistake, so then you arrange it for another time, but then the in-laws get COVID, so it has to be rearranged again, and each time you have to completely change your schedule, your content schedule. You have to rethink about when you're going to film it, when you're going to edit it, where you're going to be when you're training. This is just a hypothetical example, you understand. Point is, you don't get any routine, but also you are stuck rigidly to this routine. I can't just jet off to another country and film a cool video there, even though I'd love to. And if I injure myself, I can't just take some time off to recover properly, because I'm a parent and I have to stick to this routine, and that involves being jumped on all the time. goals are completely different, and there's this unspoken assumption in a lot of content that you're kind of training to attract members of the opposite sex, and particularly with productivity and self-improvement, you're trying to attract the opposite sex. There's a whole kind of subculture of that on YouTube, and as a parent, as someone who's happily married, that's obviously not my goal or my interest anymore. Some information on how to build the perfect V-taper because that's what feels like a t-shirt and looks great is not particularly interesting to me, and the same goes, I imagine, for a lot of other parents as well. We just want to be healthy and feel good about ourselves. And our goals change in terms of productivity as well. Because these days, I realise I want to spend more time with my family, and success for the sake of success isn't really worth it. I could grow this channel a lot faster if I invested in it more, if I hired lots of people, teams of marketers, etc. But in doing that, I'd then become this kind of CEO guy. I'd have a lot more stress. I'd be responsible for them as well as for my children and my family. I have a job where, yeah, I'm successful and yeah, I'm doing things I enjoy, but it's not taking loads of time away from my family life or committing me to things that I don't necessarily want to be committed to. I don't want to be successful at the expense of being a good dad. And I think a lot of mums and dads watching this might hopefully feel the same way too. Your priorities shift, and a lot of the YouTube content out there just doesn't reflect this. So then all this raises the question, should you even become a parent at a young age if you're interested in getting to your best ever shape, if you want to build a business or thrive in some kind of other career path? Someone who has an interesting perspective on this is Captain Sinbad. I'm a fan of his channel, and I love the production value and the way he draws on movies for inspiration in a similar way that I do. And I feel like he's actually trying to make art here, not just YouTube talking cake. We're actually at a similar level in terms of our growth. He doesn't know this, but I'm secretly competing with him because I'm a maniac. But in one of his videos, he referenced a book, and to paraphrase, it was basically saying that becoming a parent at a young age is one of the worst things you can do if you want to be successful, because it takes up so many resources, so much time, so much energy, and you just can't build an empire when you're also trying to be a parent. And this is something that I disagree with. I would not advise any single people out there to avoid starting a family if they want to be successful. In fact, quite the opposite. Personally, I'm actually financially far more stable now than I ever was when I was single. And part of the reason for this is being a parent, which lights a fire under your ass and makes sure that you really focus on what you're doing. When Amy came along, that's when I decided to launch an ebook and sell it from the site, which ultimately was a big success, more so than I expected. And it's what led to me being able to do the Pioneer as my full-time job. I also did this in a very careful way. I still wrote for Rental Authority, I was still a freelance writer, and I kept those things going because I didn't want to take a leap of faith and potentially jeopardize the financial future of my family. At the same time, being a parent just grows you up, and I don't want to be one of those people who condescends to non-parents, like you can't possibly know what it's like, but it does really mature you in some fundamental ways that are hard to explain. Clearly, I'm still a man-child, but at the same time, I also am much more restrained, and I'd like to think I'm more patient and more understanding of other people, a little bit more measured in my opinions, and I've had experience being a genuine leader, which is something that anyone can experience by being a parent. It's changed the way I approach things, and honestly, I think I'm more successful because of that growth and maturity that I've achieved. You know, the first time you get a job, you grow up in a lot of ways, and you can undeniably say you've changed between getting that job and not having the job. The same thing happens when you become a parent. You change in a fundamental way, and on the whole, I think it's for the better. It forces you to grow up in those key areas. By the way, my wife always said that she wasn't attracted to muscular men when we first started dating, so it didn't even help me in that regard. She's also very unimpressed with traditional markers of success, and I love her so much for that. The great thing about being in a happy family is it takes all this external pressure off. You know, I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'm happy. I don't need external validation in the same way because I get it from my family, so it just frees you. It's very liberating. And of course, I should say that having children is absolutely amazing. They're hilarious, they're fascinating, they're extremely cute, and yeah, they become your best little buddies. And the other thing is, being a parent doesn't stop you from achieving the things that you want to achieve. Genuinely. So many guys I know have ended promising relationships because they felt they were being held back by their partners. They want to travel the world or start a business, focus on their career, get into amazing shape. But in every single case where that's happened, that person did then not go on to travel the world or to start an amazing business. They just kind of floundered and eventually ended up in a different relationship. On the other hand, I know plenty of people who've been highly successful and they're in relationships. In a lot of cases here, the other half and the children are useful scapegoats for why your life isn't the way you want it to be. I've always been of the philosophy that if there's two things I want and I'm forced to choose between them, my answer is always do both. And there's no reason you can't be productive, successful, train hard, and raise a family. And we'll get to some tips on how to do that in a moment. And in terms of getting strong and into shape with kids, actually, in some ways, you get into even better shape because having kids means you're constantly active, constantly moving. I'm being climbed on all the time by my kids. play a game called Playground, where I have to do kettlebell swings with my daughter. She calls that the swing. I have to do leg raises with her hanging onto my legs. That's the seesaw. Sometimes I'm going up and down the stairs carrying both children, one in each arm. My daughter's 17 kilograms. I think my son is about 8 kilograms. That's a lot of weight to be carrying all the time. You guys know how much I agree with constantly training throughout the day, and in this way, dad strength is very real and very similar to farmer strength. So then, how do we work around the limitations, the challenges of having kids if we want to be productive and get into amazing shape? Well, my first piece of advice in terms of getting into shape and training is to make your workouts more adaptable so that you can train under a range of different circumstances. One way I've done this is that I've written multiple versions of the same workout. So I have 3 workouts that I alternate between at the moment. They're kind of based on the Protein Performance System, Super Functional Training 2.0, but I've adapted them to my current needs. And I do a version of those depending on where I am. So one version is suitable for the gym, which is great if I want the weights, access to more tools. There's a version that I do when I'm outside, if I'm going to use my kettlebell and my medicine ball and run around the field somewhere. Then there's a version that I do if I'm in the office, because I've got some equipment here that I train with. And there's a version I can do at home whilst my wife is going through the shower in the evening before bed. Obviously I don't have a bench press at home, but by doing high repetition push-ups or by doing dips, I can somewhat train in an equivalent manner. And this actually just keeps things fresh and interesting, but it also means that if I can't get to the gym, that doesn't mean that I don't train. Another thing I do is that I have essential exercises, the things I absolutely must do, and I have bonus additional peripheral exercises. So I might go to the gym, and if I've only got 25 minutes in the gym before I need to start work, then I'll do those essential things there, and that's at least something. At the same time, the peripheral exercises, the one I leave at the end, they tend to be the ones that I can do somewhere else. So I might do my big, bulky workout in the morning at the gym, and then in the evening, I'll finish up with some mobility work, with maybe some handstand practice, or maybe some light push-ups and things. This way I'm spreading my workouts through the day, which you guys know is something that I highly advocate, but also I'm adapting my training to my situation. I will also say that with regards to the routine changing without warning, you should also always train when the opportunity arises. So don't take too many rest days if you don't need them, because you might need them later when the boiler breaks or something. Then of course I also recommend training throughout the day wherever possible. Breaking your workouts into smaller workouts is something I've talked about a lot on this channel. One of the reasons I do this is because I'm a parent and it's a great way to fit it in. So I'll do a 10-minute workout here, 10-minute workout there. Everyone has 10 minutes in the day, and I made a whole video discussing how 10 minutes in a day can be enough to train. Another thing to think about is just efficiency, as in how quickly can you get into the gym, do a workout that's going to stimulate growth and adaptation, and get out. This is something that will come with time. As you get more practiced, you'll learn specifically what your body responds to and how to feel when you've done enough and get that minimum effective dose.
Cheers, Sleepy. Always appreciate the
isn't that I don't have time,
support.
Even that I don't have energy. I think that
You haven't
everyone has a little bit of time. If you've
used
watched
your
any
points in a
one
while,
video,
which is a bit
you have a little bit of
scary.
time. The issue is
I'm afraid of the
sometimes
day
but the other
that you
issue,
unleash
big
all
one
that
for
on
me
me.
is
Thank
that
you
there's
very
so much
much.
I want to do, and there's not enough time to do all those things. So it's not that I don't want to work out, because I really enjoy working out, but it's just that there might be something that's even more tempting. Like at the moment, I'm playing Shenmue 3, as I've randomly talked about a weird amount on this channel. I also installed some emulators, and I'm playing the old Virtua Fighter games. I really want to watch Doctor Strange, now it's on streaming. My wife and I still haven't watched Top Gun. There are books I want to read, comics. I've downloaded the latest Iron Man comic and the latest Dragon Ball Super manga. Haven't even had a chance to read them. And when it comes to the evening, and I've got 10 minutes to fit in this workout, sometimes the allure of Virtua Fighter or Dragon Ball Super is a little bit too strong, and I'd rather do that. One solution to this is multitasking your workouts. That could mean that you're watching TV whilst you're training, or it might just mean that between sets you do a little bit of reading, or between sets you do a little bit of gaming. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is because so many sites and so many YouTube channels talk about this like it's the devil, like you must focus 100% on your workouts at all times. And that's great if you have loads of time, but my ethos on this is that training in a distracted way is better than not training at all. As for the sleep, this is something that's a little bit harder to negotiate. Some people tend to take power naps, but again, I think this is advice that isn't always that in touch with reality. Personally, I and my wife find that power naps make us feel really groggy when we wake up. And if the issue is time, because you have so many chores to do, because that's the thing with kids, you don't just do the looking after the kids, you have to make all those weird purees for them, and you have to clean up the 10 times as much crockery because you have more mouths to feed, and you have to cook for more people, and you have to clean all the time, and they leave their junk everywhere. So you don't really have time to power nap. If you power nap, then the house is going to be a tip, or you're not going to do that training. All I'll say is that while I don't want to downplay the importance of sleep, you don't have to fret that much. If you only get 6 hours, or even 5 hours, few nights, because this is a rite of passage that every parent goes through, and it doesn't kill them. The book Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker actually makes quite a lot of sweeping statements about how a lack of sleep can double your chances of cancer and all sorts of things like that. It massively hurts productivity, increases injuries and accidents. And while there might be some truth in this, I actually also found a really interesting article online that countered many of these points with scientific literature, saying that it's not as clear-cut as we might think. And that's kind of like my gut impulse as well, because if that were true, then parents wouldn't live as long as non-parents. And actually we know that the opposite is true. Parents live longer than non-parents. One of the reasons for this might be because they pick up more infections from preschool, which actually strengthens the immune system. And for me, the worst thing I can do if I'm tired is to fret about it and make it into this big issue, especially if I hit the snooze button, if I lay around on the couch, if I tell people I'm tired. Conversely, if I just get to work, smile, put on some upbeat music, pretty quickly I forget that I'm that tired. And at the same time, if I'm moving throughout the day, as I've talked about, this is a great way to stimulate yourself and provide yourself with more energy. As Arnold Schwarzenegger himself would say, sleep quicker. In terms of productivity and achieving the things you want to in business and your career, I will just say that once again, many of the same things apply. You need to focus on the essentials and then just do the extra bit at the end of the day if you have time. That means for me, every week I have to make a video, and that's 100% the priority. I don't even really answer emails until that point, which means I do get some angry emails later in the week that I have to deal with. But if I were to sit and answer them, and to write to-do lists and have meetings with people who, are just going to blow smoke, then I wouldn't really be being productive and I wouldn't be using my time maximally. You want to create a proper separation between work and home, but again, being adaptable is useful in this regard. The right technology can really help. For instance, I just got a new laptop for editing on the go. Made all the difference to me. We'll also say that you can multitask again, and in particular that means planning whilst you're doing other stuff. So when I'm cooking, when I'm on the toilet, I'll be planning in my head the next script, the next video, thinking of all the different shots. And I'll do this for ages. I'll listen to podcasts for research or YouTube videos for research, and I'll bring it all together so that when it's time to film on Monday, I can go straight into it and I know exactly what I want to film. To step back and look at the bigger picture, you also need to be really clear what your goals are and what you want. Because think not only about the job in terms of, the glossy front of it, what you think it's going to be like, but also the day-to-day. Sure, you might like to be a powerful CEO who has lots of influence and cool suits and a high-rise building, but then think about what that's actually like. What hours are you going to end up working? Is that something you're happy to do as a parent? What's the commute like? How stressful will you be coming home? I'd just like to take a moment to make it really clear that it's absolutely fine to not have any big ambitions in terms of a career, etc. There's this contingent on the web that implies that if you're not interested in becoming a movie star or a business person or an entrepreneur, then you're wasting your time, you're never going to amount to anything, and your life doesn't matter, etc. I don't think this could be further from the truth. There's absolutely nothing more noble about being a movie star or an entrepreneur than there is if you just want to have a nice life with your family. That's a perfectly fine aspiration. But likewise, it's perfectly fine if you do want to change the world with some kind of great ambition or idea. Just keep in mind that you're not obligated to be highly ambitious or to try and change the world or do any of these things, and it's absolutely fine if you're just happy ticking along and you want to get your sense of meaning and fulfillment from elsewhere. Finally, I'd say make sure you have your priorities straight, and that means not letting your work bleed into your time with your kids. Ultimately, my big takeaway from all this is that you can achieve all the things you want to achieve in terms of your fitness and your career and everything else, and you shouldn't view your family as this kind of like big challenge to overcome. You just might need to adapt some of the advice you've heard online, because so much of that is aimed squarely at single 20-somethings, very few responsibilities, and for a large proportion of we YouTube viewing public, that's simply not the reality. Hope you found some useful tips in this video to take away. Like I said, I'd love to hear your tips down below. Is a lack of advice for parents something that you've noticed on YouTube? Or there's some big YouTube channels that I'm missing? This video is a bit of a risk because I don't know how many of you guys have kids or would be interested in this topic, and I've ranted for ages, but there's just some points that I really wanted to share, and hopefully some of you guys found it interesting. I'll be interested to see how this video performs. Subscribe if you want to see more like this, and also not that much like this. And guys, remember that link in the description. It's a 7-day free trial of Blinkist. Hit the bell button for notifications. And either way, thank you so much for watching this one, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.
You could be locked in a cage just for... Imagine a world where you could be locked in a cage just for your opinion. An opinion, mind you, that doesn't hurt anyone physically, but just maybe upset someone. Imagine you post something on social media and you think it's a little bit funny. You post an Instagram story, you reckon, oh, that's pretty funny. Or you retweet something on Twitter and you think, oh, that's a bit funny. Nothing violent. It might be a political statement. but nothing actually violent. Imagine you press share and it goes out into the modern day town square that is social media, and you have police come to your house, they lock you up and take you away. Well, we don't have to imagine that world, because that's our fucking world right now. G'day ladies and gentlemen, my name's Isaac Butterfield. G'day you good motherfuckers, how you doing? The Buttsman here. But before we go any further, ladies and gentlemen, on the topic of people trying to stop you doing things, you need someone on your side. Ladies and gentlemen, that is exactly who is sponsoring this video. The great people at Surfshark VPN. Safety and security are two very important aspects of daily internet life. Did you know that every single day there's thousands of little soy boys trying to find your credit card information, they're trying to take your bloody ID? It's all happening. And if only there was someone out there to save your bacon. Well, I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, there is, and their name is Surfshark VPN. Surfshark turns you into an anonymous and hard to trace online user. And what geo-blocking is, Disney Plus or Netflix access automatically when I start up my computer. I absolutely adore it. I wouldn't live life without it. And ladies and gentlemen, I reckon you should sign up as well. Use the promo code BUTSMART to get 83% off and 3 months for free. That is absolutely ridiculous. Plus, Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk. Surf by your own set of rules, ladies and gentlemen. Download Surfshark VPN today. Now, back to the video. Ladies and gents, this video is all kinds of fucked up. And I mean all kinds, because I don't necessarily agree with what the dude actually posted, but I do not agree with him being arrested for it. We saw this shit in Australia when the lockdowns were happening and that pregnant lady got arrested. She dared to plan a protest and she was locked up because of that. We saw it when the great Count Dankula was arrested because he taught his cute little pug dog to do the Heil Hitler, and he was arrested because apparently that was fucking offensive. Like, he was trying to prove to his wife that not everything his beautiful little pug dog did was cute. So he fucked around and made it do some Hitler shit. He wanted to test whether or not he could make it do something repugnant. No pun intended. And he was locked up because of this, charged with a fucking hate crime. For fuck's sake, this is not China. And I say it's not China because obviously Chinese Communist Party, the big brother's always watching. Shit like this happens. Chinese police detain a man for 9 days over a dog meme. These people are watched by their dictators 24/7. But this is happening all over the globe right now. Oh, Isaac, we're in a very free society, you know, we're in the freest society of all time. Bullshit. Let's go to England for this story, okay? Where a man has been put in cuffs, locked up, held, detained against his will. Why? Because he used social media to make a post and to quote the officers that locked him up, arrested someone for causing someone else anxiety.
Someone, obviously, anxiety based upon your social media page.
What the fuck, England? In what world is slightly upsetting someone, giving them a little bit of anxiety, a fucking crime? Let's have a look at the post itself, okay? I don't even know if I can fucking post it on here. I don't know if I should. But moment, Army veteran is arrested for causing anxiety, quotes, after retweeting a meme of a swastika made out of pride flags. So he retweeted a swastika, which is the Nazi party symbol, made out of pride flags. At the start of the year, I saw a car at the front of a show that I was doing in Melbourne that had what I thought was a swastika on it, but it wasn't a swastika because it wasn't turned sideways. It was like it was straight up and down, like it was fucking nice and level, which apparently is the original. I'm not sure if it's a Buddhist or Sikh symbol of peace and love and all that type of shit. I know it's a very old religion, it's an old symbol, but can you pick a new one? Anyway, I posted on Facebook blowing up and people just had the shits with me because I don't understand, ancient religions. Fucking, I'm sorry. This is the moment an army veteran was arrested by police for causing anxiety after retweeting a picture of a swastika made out of pride flags on social media. Darren Brady, 51, has slammed Hampshire police for impeding his right to free speech after he was placed into handcuffs on Friday at his home in Aldershot for sharing a meme. I understand why people are upset at swastikas. Representation of the most evil and vile group in, recent memory. There's been a lot of horrible people in history, so I won't say in history, but they're fucking up there. I, like most people, as I said, hate this fucking symbol. If my neighbour put it up next door, I would have the shit. It represents a gruesome, horrible group of people committing genocide, horrible murders, and just awfulness, just supreme evil, awful people. But we aren't really talking about the evil side of genocide, that type of stuff, and the atrocities committed by Hitler's regime and too. We're talking about the introduction of the pride flag to make it look like the Nazi symbol. The image Mr. Brady retweeted was of a swastika that had been digitally manipulated and was made out of 4 LGBT pride flags. Okay, so why? Why? That's the question. What is his reasoning for retweeting that, or what is the reasoning for the first person tweeting that? Where does this image come from? Why does it exist? And what statement is it trying to make? Let's find that out. I had to go down a rabbit hole to work this out, but it was originally posted by an actor called Lawrence Fox. Now, I have no idea who he is, but he's been in a few different shows here and there. On Monday, the 44-year-old actor turned campaigner Fox left many disappointed and angry as he changed his profile picture to a swastika made out of 4 pride flags, which reflected his belief that LGBT Pride Month is enforced with a sense of hectoring authoritarianism. Let's break down that quote. Pride Month is enforced with a sense of hectoring. Now that's a very important word, meaning pressuring or bullying or making someone believe something a certain way. Hectoring authoritarianism. Authoritarianism meaning strict obedience to authority at the expense of personal freedom. So I assume he means that Pride Month to him is enforced in a way that you are not allowed to think any differently of it or of its values. Otherwise, you basically cancel. Fox also said in Nazi Germany, before they massacred the Jews, they used to celebrate Pride too. Pride in a flag that didn't represent the views of the German people. If you stand for equality for gay people, I stand beside you. If you stand for child genital mutilation, I'm against you. Okay, I assume he's talking about trans kids here. And that's a fair point. You're allowed to be against that. You're allowed to be against having genitals of a child removed because they believe they're a different sex. And this is sort of forced upon people as the general view that it should be okay for kids to take life-changing sex hormone drugs and remove certain parts of their body to make them better. And if you are against that prevailing view that this is okay and this is great, then you are shouted down. Now, I'm one of these people that think that shouldn't happen. You shouldn't make decisions as a child that are going to affect you for the rest of your days. And so negatively. I think, personally, and agree with me or disagree with me, I think no transgender people should ever have bottom surgery. Go for top surgery, whatever. The bottom surgery where they remove the penis, dude, that is just don't do it. From all reports, it is a horrible surgery, a tough recovery, fails a lot. Like, I know that it may make you feel better, but I just don't think it's worth the risk. Just hide your dick. I mean, I don't know. I know I'm not being very sensitive here, but apparently it's a really tough surgery. So if you're thinking about it, maybe don't do it. Don't get me wrong, obviously, trans people should be loved, they should be valued, and they should be respected. And the same goes for the kids. They're so young, and they're so vulnerable, and just don't touch them with fucking surgery. The image he used in that tweet, you could use any flag. I get the point he's trying to make. I don't know if I agree with exactly how he's doing it, or how he's comparing it, but that's his right to do that. Obviously, he's trying to get a reaction, and he can get that. A lot of people disagree with Fox, including a great group called Pink News. Fox then seemed to misleadingly compare gender-affirming healthcare for trans youth. See how they use gender-affirming healthcare rather than gender transitioning, chopping off, changing sex hormones in the body. Gender-affirming healthcare, wording and optics is very important to genital mutilation. Now that's great reporting. Doesn't sound biased at all. So I do agree with Fox to an extent. I don't agree with the way he sort of went about it, but I agree that there is this hectoring authoritarianism around not just Pride Month, but a lot of different things. Whether it's vaccines, whether it's Pride Month, whether it's trans youth, whether it's what you vote politically, whether it's how you eat, how you live your life, whether or not you drive a gas-guzzling car. There is a lot of things that...
Alright. That was a waste of time trying to get him on that chair, but whatever. That's done. Workout done. Any questions? Thanks for the PMs. Thanks for following. Thanks for joining in. Get out there, do some exercise, even if it's a walk, even if it's standing even. Do something. Oh, look at him. Just typical cat. Anyway. Have a good rest of the week. Enjoy your weekend. I'll do my usual wrist exercises on the weekend. Don't know if I'll stream it or not. But they are very crucial to me as a therapist. I found that it's given me the most help. Any therapist out there that manual therapist, I highly recommend. Resistance balls, elastic bands, work on your flexors and extensors. As you get stronger, your treatments get better, your patients get better. You know, it's a cycle of exercise life. Anyway, take care until next time.